Hi, and welcome to the MCB Community Update. My name's Eric Joseph. I'm the Executive Director of the Audible Local Ledger, located in beautiful Mashpee, Massachusetts. It's part of the Massachusetts Audio Information Network, Maine, your main source for accessible community news and information. We bring local news and information to the blind and print disabled across the state. As part of this podcast, we'll interview the Commissioner, John Oliveira of the Mass Commission for the Blind, quarterly. And in the intervening months, we'll bring experts who have a lot to offer to our community. And we'll listen to what they have to say, we'll ask them some probing questions, and hopefully we'll all learn together. We welcome your feedback and hope you enjoy our series of interviews. And now, without further ado, here is the MCB Community Update. Good morning. Our guest this month on MCB Community Update is Region 3 Director Kara Sittig. There are 6 regions in the state that have directors. Region 3 is in the northeastern part of Massachusetts. Welcome, Kara. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit about your work history, how you came to MCB. Have you always been involved with state agencies or assisting people who are disabled in some manner?
So I have been at MCB for my full adult career. I went to Assumption College in Worcester. I majored in human services. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was in college, but I knew I liked, was interested in people, working with people. So I found myself majoring in human services. One summer, I was looking for a volunteer opportunity and came across Perkins School for the Blind. I had no prior experience with people with vision loss, really no education knowledge, but I knew that Perkins was well known. I had also considered education as a major, so I thought, this could be something to try. So I really only volunteered for a month or so, but was, I found everything to be so new and interesting, and it just sort of stuck with me. I didn't necessarily say I want to work in the field of vision loss, but it definitely had an impact on me. So Assumption actually at the time, I don't know if they have it anymore, they had a 6 and 5 program where you get 2 years of your master's degree the first year during your senior year, and then 1 following year. So I took advantage of that to be able to get my master's in rehab counseling. And so upon graduation, it felt like most people were interviewing for the Mass Rehab Commission. That's sort of where the rehab counseling program was, not pushing people, but there was, that was sort of like, it was a feeder into state vocational rehabilitation. So while I'm looking at Mass Rehab, I see an opening for the Mass Commission for the Blind, and I thought, oh, I have a little bit of knowledge about blindness. So I went for it. It ended up being in the region, the Northeast, where I lived at the time. And even the people I interviewed with, it had a great feeling. It went well, and everyone was just so welcoming. And that was in 2010. So I've been here ever since. I started as a voc rehab counselor. I was a counselor for 5 years. Then was lucky to get the voc rehab supervisor position. Was a supervisor for about 7 years and have been the director of the same region, the Northeast region that I've been in for about 1.5 years now.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And the Northeast region, is that comprised of certain counties, or what makes up the Northeast? I know it's the northeastern part of the state, but is there a specific kind of designation of counties that you cover?
Yes, so it's Middlesex County, which is, I believe, split with Region 4. It's Essex County, and it's Merrimack. No, that's the same, Essex and Middlesex. So Merrimack Valley, Lowell area, all the way up to Newburyport, Gloucester. And then for the Middlesex region, just Medford, Malden, Everett, just north of Boston. It's very heavily populated, the Northeast.
So yeah, you probably know the Lowell Association for the Blind, and
of course,
Elizabeth Cannon, who is one of our colleagues.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's terrific, and they do great work there.
They do.
We're about to close out National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and obviously vocational rehabilitation, or VR as it's known, can play a critical part in gaining employment for MCB consumers. So can you outline a little bit about the services that are offered, and then even more importantly, the process that a person would go through to receive this training or these services?
Yeah, so the bulk of our referrals come from the ophthalmologist or the eye doctor. So an eye doctor declares someone legally blind, and according to age, as the director, I see all the referrals, but I have to determine, I take a glance at the eye report and their age and determine if it should be screened for vocational rehabilitation. So I do call the person. If someone says that they're interested in working, we go ahead and look at their case in vocational rehabilitation. If someone's interested, then we like to get that ball rolling in voc rehab. So from there, the vocational rehabilitation counselor just takes a look at where the client is with their skills. Many times they have to really start, from scratch with blindness skills. So orientation, mobility, maybe housing isn't stable, other diagnoses that are going on, Social Security, English as a second language. So all of these things are taken into account where we sort of start with the person, but a plan is developed based on their employment goal, and then services start rolling. So those would include orientation, mobility, rehabilitation, teaching in the home. So making sure someone is independent and able to perform activities of daily living at home, even if it's that, like, preparing your lunch in order to go to work. Other training or services. So once the plan's developed and there's a goal in place, there could be going back to the basic skills. So we do refer many people to the Carroll Center for the Blind to get those skills in place. It's more of intensive training. We have in-house specialists who do provide the training as well. But it's out in the community where there, as the Carroll Center would be intensive in one place, getting it all at once. Tech training could also take place at the Carroll Center for the Blind, or we can utilize New England Low Vision out in Central Mass for some more assistive technology training. Or you could have someone that's been in a position and, already working and, feels their vision declining, is declared legally blind, wants to keep their job. They may need to pivot and learn some tech training, some new technology skills while they're still in their job and to keep it. And now there is areas we need to sort of pivot completely and look for a new employment goal if someone has been working and they're not able to do that specific job anymore, sort of shifting. So other training programs we can do specific, like interpreter training for people who want to work in the field of interpreting, whether it's medical, legal. We've sent people, when I say sent, I mean have helped fund programs for nursing, massage therapy programs. We've seen more too of an interest in self-employment. So we've worked with the National Industries for the Blind. They have an entrepreneurship program called Insight, where we've sent consumers to learn more about starting your own business, what that looks like. So there's many options, but it starts with just determining where the client is with their skills, developing a plan, an employment goal, and just taking however long it takes to reach that goal.
So everything comes to you first. A new consumer is the document is sent to you first, and then there's a collaboration with your team. Is that how it works? You named a bunch of things that have to be assessed for work that are all individual and unique to the consumer, and they may be a different combination for every different consumer. So is it a team thing? Because we've spoken with various directors of your services, and they've been terrific. Orientation and mobility, registration, assistive technology, and listeners, if you haven't heard those interviews, those are available wherever you're hearing this one, and I definitely recommend you listen to them. They're very informative. So, Cara, how do your various roles interact in a team setting, and then who leads that contact with a consumer? Do you put it all together, you guys come up with a plan, and then you step back and there's a caseworker who's the main contact? Or how does that evaluation work, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, we're always working as a team. We're always interacting with each other, starting from registration. Kaylee in registration, central registration, who's wonderful. She does make some of the initial calls, say if it's a doctor trying to get someone registered, sometimes there can be a lag or, someone's really, it's urgent, that they get registered, receive services. Sometimes Kaylee will come to my door and say, hey, I just talked to this person. Can you, expedite this? And I'm able to know from her after speaking with them that, this is somebody that we really need to reach out to as soon as possible. So I can relay that information. On the flip side, we could get calls, saying registration has been sent, and we can talk to registration and say, hey, have you seen this? Can you push it through if you see the name come through? And then from there, I mean, we do have, of course, our in-house services. So our orientation mobility instructors, most of them are in-house. So we have that direct line of communication of, the counselor can go to see a person, refer them to orientation mobility, but say, here's the situation. There's the paper referral, but we always have that communication of, I met them on this day. Here's what was going on. Here's what the, environment looks like for this person. They might prefer XYZ when you go see them. And the same goes for rehabilitation teaching. You have the referral on paper and it's sent as soon as possible, but always that line of communication, what's going on. And as the process continues, a collaboration of how can we best support this person. We've had counselors and specialists go have visits together just so the counselor is aware of the support services that are going on and how they can, help on the side with encouraging and continuing some skills that they've worked on with rehabilitation teaching, orientation mobility, assistive technology training. So yes, the VR counselor takes the lead on the case, but the supervisor is usually pretty aware and involved of the cases, especially if it's, a little bit more involved and more moving parts, but always a team approach.
Great, great. Many of our listeners are undergoing the transition from vision to being designated officially vision impaired. And for those who have a fear of what comes next, can you maybe outline the initial interaction and how they're introduced to those services? Because one of our goals with this podcast is to demystify this whole process and allay fears. And we found that this kind of information is very helpful in doing so.
Sure. We are very aware that the initial call from someone saying, hi, this is Kara from the Mass Commission for the Blind can be very disconcerting to hear that word. It can be stressful, nerve-wracking. So that said, they need to know where we're calling from, but to recognize that, just hearing it and getting the call can be stressful. So I always ask right away, I received your iReport from so-and-so at, say, Mass Ioneer. Were you aware that they were referring you? Thankfully, most of the time they are aware. There are instances where they're not. So you just want to be mindful of what the consumer has been told about their diagnosis, that they do know that they are considered legally blind. And again, Kaylee in registration and the registration team, they have to make those initial calls also, and they're very sensitive to that fact. So, and we also just try to, at least I try to speak to someone as if they were a family member or a friend, you could reach someone at a bad time and to understand yeah, of course you don't want to be hearing from me right now, but I want you to know that we're here. These are the services available to you. You don't have to accept them, but you are, considered registered and eligible for these services. So we always just will meet the person where they are. If they're not ready at the time, that's fine. We're not going to pressure services. And for them to know that we will always be here. Things can change. Maybe now is not the time to start with a plan or an employment goal, but you know where to find us when you're ready.
Sounds like you handle it with a great deal of compassion.
Yeah.
So shifting gears a little bit, what are some of the goals that you might have in mind for the end of the year as we're going into this final quarter? And And then, just as importantly, what are some of the obstacles that you're facing, the challenges? And do you feel like you've been given enough tools to do this job? It's a challenging job from what you've outlined. It's an awful lot of work and a lot of evaluation and very sensitive material. Do you have everything you need to be successful at it?
I do feel like I have everything I need to be successful. And when I say I mean the team. I mean
Sure.
just just being surrounded by dedicated, passionate workers makes all the difference. People who understand why they want to do this job. Um, it helps too when some are willing to maybe go the extra mile to help others, or make one last phone call on a Friday before the weekend so that you're not leaving someone hanging, wondering what's going on for a few days. So there are actually a couple exciting things we're working on. So actually we just launched, I believe we're the first state agency to use an AI system, an artificial intelligence system internally, where our staff can look up policy through the AI system. So it's been created where if a staff member has a question, they can type it in and be directed to the most accurate policy answer, which is great. We are also internally working on, we're calling it a vocational rehabilitation desk guide. So sort of an in-house manual of basically how to be a VR counselor at MCB. So a challenge that any agency company might face is an inconsistency, especially when we cover the state and there's 6 regions. It's sometimes difficult where we're not even in the same building, and we're virtual to be on the same page with our policy, our procedures. So this will help get everybody across the board with the same responses, where you could, start day one as a VR counselor and look at this, and it just walk you step by step on what to do.
Oh, great. An employee guide, sort of, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
Terrific. Yeah, a critical piece for any business or organization to have. Uh, Along those same lines, much of the country is having trouble filling positions because of the low unemployment figures. How is your group doing? And then more in the macro, how's MCB doing with openings?
Sure. Luckily for our region, for the Northeast region, we are almost fully staffed. Our administrative assistant was promoted to accounting director, which is amazing. But direct staff, we are fully staffed, which we did have a rehabilitation teacher opening for quite some time. It's a skilled position that was just difficult to fill, to find the right fit. But overall, we do have staff members that are attending job fairs, getting the word out there that these types of positions at the Commission for the Blind exist. They've been to a job fair for veterans. I think there's another coming up for people with disabilities. And we are actually partnering with UMass Boston for in the Vision Studies program to do some information sessions. I think the first one is tonight, but there are upcoming sessions to learn more about the Vision Studies program at UMass Boston, but specifically positions for teachers of the visually impaired, or TVIs, who work with children who are blind or visually impaired in schools, or orientation mobility instructors who will work out in the community to teach travel and mobility skills to consumers. So those are coming out with UMass Boston. So some information sessions on vision studies, which would hopefully help with our recruitment.
Great. And how big is a team of are all the teams the same size in terms of regional coverage and geography, or are they varied based on how big the geography is or how many potential consumers are in that geography?
That's a good question. They are, for the most part, the same size, maybe give or take one or two, whether it's VR counselors, social rehab counselors, rehab teachers, but generally the same size per region.
And what is that ballpark? Like, what number is that? Basically, is
Um,
it a dozen, 5, 20? I have no concept of how big your team is, other than they're all committed.
yeah, a dozen. So for us, it's voc rehab supervisor, a social rehab supervisor, 2 voc rehab counselors, 1 children's worker, 3 social workers, 3 rehab teachers, 1 driver.
Wow. And how many potential consumers are in your region? Ballpark, obviously, very
Oh,
loose.
geez. I
Do you
should know this.
know?
I should know
The
this number. I know the caseload sizes.
Well, I know the overall number is somewhere between 26 and 30,000 across the state. So we can assume that it's at least several thousand, right? I think that would be a pretty safe
That's
estimate.
That's definitely a good estimate. And that's, that's both active and inactive. I would say right now, active consumers, an average caseload size on both sides for a social rehab worker, so working with the elderly, and a voc rehab worker for the working age population. It's about, I would say any counselor has about 80 to 120 consumers on their caseload. So they're high.
Yeah, which is exactly why I was asking that question, because you have a team of a dozen handling quite a bit of stuff, which just a slow clap from an outsider, just saying that's incredible that that amount of work can be done by such a committed group of individuals. So congrats to you for the
Yeah, and we do
successes
our
that you have.
best with those numbers. And of course, you don't want to let on to other consumers that this is how many people you're working with. And to, we don't say, I can't do this because I'm working with this many people, that's not for them to worry about, but we do our best with the numbers that we have. Can be
I know
challenging.
it's probably a challenge. It's a challenge across state agencies, I think, in general. There's an awful lot of that.
Yeah.
So this has been really informative and insightful. And we like to end with just a little bit of personal information and some insight about our MCB professionals. And so on a totally different note, and yes, that's pun intended, what was your first concert and which band or artist is your favorite musician, Kara?
I am very proud of my first concert. It was NSYNC No Strings Attached tour. And I don't think many people know this, but Pink opened and Pink is still going strong. And she was a new artist at the time. And currently, I mean, I would say like everything, but I think I'm really just a pop girl. I mean, I
Yeah.
like Beyonce, Taylor Swift. I like John Mayer. I just went to the Post Malone concert. My kids are very into Benson Boone, who's newer.
Okay.
So that's my next concert. We're gonna see him. He'll be at the Kiss Jingle Ball, so that's exciting.
Did Pink come in on a trapeze back then, or was that not her athletic years?
Not back then. She did not come in on a trapeze, but that's when she did have just short pink hair.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Kara. Thank you just so much for all this insight you've provided. It is very much appreciated.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Join us next month when we interview MCB Children's Service Worker Emily Perry. Thanks again, Kara.
Thank you. And Emily's wonderful. That should be a good one.
Looking forward to it. Bye.
Bye-bye.